you're probably going to get more in depth into this next story. So, Zero, why don't you go ahead and get into something that happened with the BROK the Investigator devs?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting story, and it's also a bit of a consumer advocacy story to not buy game keys from gray market sellers such as Kinguin, G2A, and others of their ilk. So, an interesting sort of thing happened where the a developer of BROK the Investigator had posted a giant Twitter mega thread that spanned over 16 tweets saying, "Hey, I have reason to believe that I may have been hit by shady gray market resellers, and this is all the bits and pieces I have uh, to put out in front of the world, and let you, the world at large, make what you will of the evidence that I've been able to gather." And pretty much story goes that right before release, as usual, game developers will typically get a glut of emails from just random people saying, "Hey, I work with a streamer. Hey, I work with this small publication. Hey, I am a guy who runs a small Twitch channel and plays independent games." Just whatever, whatever sort of story that the person may have, just they will run to these developers and just kind of set up their story and say, "Hey, um, I'd like to review your game. Could I have 3 to 5 game keys so I can distribute them across my staff and maybe do giveaways?" Just whatever excuse you can think of.
Right.
And typically, this isn't really the way you're supposed to approach developers to get keys, especially if these people are Steam curators, because Valve has provided a system to give curators access. But we'll get into that into the later part of the
Mm-hmm.
story.
Yeah.
So pretty much just what the developer for the game did was he had sent an email saying, literally in the body of the email, "Hi, I'm going to send you a prologue key. Um, if you if you notice, if you have an issue that this is a prologue key and need the full key, or if you play the game and hit the stopping point of the prologue, please feel free to approach me, and I will give you a full game key to continue your evaluation of the game." And I believe in the thread he had mentioned that out of the 25 emails that he had replied to, only 3 people actually noticed or played and hit the point that the prologue ended,
Mm-hmm.
followed back up with him and said, "Hey, this is a cool game, but I've hit a dead end," or "Hey, you gave me a prologue key. Can you give me an actual key?"
Yeah.
And he gave those people just the full retail key, and no issues there. The game got some good press from these few individuals that had requested the full game key. What makes it interesting is there are the others that didn't reply. All of a sudden, they have positive curator reviews saying, "Oh yeah, super great game, does all all these great things," and it was just almost sort of very similar copy pasta on these curator pages.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where it gets interesting. So turns out some of those curators are actually very, very, very scummy key resellers. So, what likely happened, and this was also covered in the developer's Twitter thread, was these shady curators immediately took these prologue keys, turned them around on sites like Kingwin, G2A, and so on, and basically advertised them as um, "BROK the Investigator full game key, $7," or some sort of ridiculous price that's much lower than the $20 that the game is going for. And likely their customers bought it, and then the customer realized once they hit the prologue ending, they were just like, "Yo, what the fuck? I got ripped off." So, nasty, angry email to the reseller. The reseller then turns around, changes that glowing positive review for the game into a negative one with some made up reasons of involving stuff that never happened in the game or whatever. And it was just like a light switch when this happened. And sure enough, just the developer sort of put two and two together and matched up these curators with people he gave prologue keys to, and coincidentally didn't reply. And um, and so just he had sort of said, hey, just kind of a fair warning to any developers out there: be wary on who you give keys to, and please use the Steam curator function where you can provide access directly to a curator without having to share a product key, where you just directly link them access to your game.
Yeah.
But the other thing that the developer also lamented was the fact that just even though he had given the curators, the scammy curators, prologue keys, they were somehow able to post their review on the full version copy of the game. But turns out that that's kind of on Steam, that curators can rate anything, and no matter if they own it or not. So that's kind of a problem on Steam. But the story kind of comes to a funny and ironic ending, because early this week, some folks on Reddit decided to kind of piece together the story from what the developer had, but they also decided to capture screenshots of these really scummy little curators who are masquerading as curators and everything, and had shown that they seem to have a consistent pattern that at any games that they would end up picking up keys for, glowing positive reviews, but anything that didn't really didn't really bend a knee and give them a free key, bad reviews all over the place for those developers who didn't. And when the developer BROK the Investigator had sort of posted their pages with their actual names uncensored, and this whole investigation across the internet sort of picked up a little bit of speed, all of a sudden, all of these bad curator pages suddenly and magically today changed their bad reviews of BROK the Investigator to good reviews.
Yeah.
So kind of a funny turnaround on the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was a wild situation.
Yeah. I was always, when we used to review games for a website that we used to write for, I was always surprised how easy it was for us to get game codes. There were times where we purchased the games on our own, but for the most part, I was easily able to go to the developers and say, hey, I write for this site, I do this podcast, we review games, can we have a code? And sure enough, we'd get codes. And not only would we get codes for that game, any future games that would come out, they would give us codes. So it was like even after the website we worked for was shut down and we stopped doing the podcast, I kept getting codes. So the one day I had to email them and go, hey, I don't do this anymore. You can stop. It's fine. But I was always surprised that there's no system out there that they can go by and saying these are reputable, this is not reputable, this is a person with, let's say, a low reach, this is somebody that has a ton of people following him, so we definitely want him to have it. I'm surprised there's no system there that a PR agency or a game maker can look to and say, yeah, give keys to these people, don't give them to these people. And like I said, I was shocked. I was really shocked by how easy it was. I think to this day I still get codes from way back when we used to write for that website. So yeah, it's pretty funny. And this guy was smart.
It's a bit ironic too, because so the Curator Connect function from Steam gives the ability for game developers to directly link access to, I believe it's a list of supposedly Steam approved curators, but unfortunately some of the curators on that list they haven't been active for years. So that's yet another problem that is on Valve to fix. And then on top of that, for the Curator Connect, you're limited to only 100 100 access distributions
Hmm.
for your game. Uh, so it's a bit sad because, of course, if you have a curator who's very active but maybe has a small audience of, I don't know, maybe 500 to 1,000 Steam gamers following that particular curator, they may not be on the Steam curator access list.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, they get left out. But on the other hand, you might have these really scummy resellers masquerading as uh, curators who potentially could be on the list, but of course they're not going to want to have a they're not going to want curator access. They're going to want full blown keys that they can turn around and sell immediately for profit.
Right.
So it's one of those things that when I was seeing independent game developers talking about this, their thought was, you know, Valve really needs to try to clean up this whole curator thing because you've got you've got some really good curators who might have a small audience, but they're plenty active and either update once or twice a week, or maybe even every day if they're that obsessed about video games, and that would make genuinely good candidates for the um, curator access program. And then you have like just the really terrible curator pages. Like, I think one of the ones that got a lot of mention on social media was um, one of the terrible curator accounts is does the game have a dog? And if the game had a dog, it was just like, yes, recommend because game has dog. And
Hmm.
then it'd be like, if the game didn't have a dog, 0 out of 10, no doggos found. And it was just like, yeah, I could see why that would get a lot of gripes from game developers because yeah, just they're not evaluating the game on its merits of gameplay or just storytelling or anything. It's just it's literally just playing on a meme, and that's about it for just some of these terrible uh, curator accounts. And then of course now there's the whole bit of just key resellers exploiting the curator program to basically make it look like that they seem like a legit video game reviewer or whatnot.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Should they just stick with the Curator Connect on Steam, or what should these? Because it's independent. Yeah, it's independent game studios that have to do this a lot. That they have to send out keys to probably smaller publications to get as much press as possible. The bigger ones like EA and Ubisoft don't have to do this at all. They can just use Steam Connect and they only worry about the big ones, really. So, what do you think is going to be going forward? What people will have to do to prevent something like this?
Unfortunately for game developers, because the Steam Curator Connect is so limited in its reach, and there's only so many curators that you can give access to. Unfortunately, um, independent developers are just going to have to do a little bit better on vetting who deserves a key and who doesn't. Or they can do the same similar play that the developer of BROK the Investigator did, and just send a demo key and put in the fine print of their email saying, hey, um, I'd almost say just make it like a literature pop quiz or something. Uh, tell us what happens in this pivotal scene, um, and if you saw this exact pivotal scene, we'll give you a full key or whatever.
Yeah.
So, just there might be some sort of clever plays, or maybe even some sort of like generated system generated seed or something that that the that the reviewer has to get to, and then turn in that seed for like a full code or something. Just
Yeah.
um, at least until Valve decides to get off their butt and just clean up the curation program and make it so that there's a little bit more freedom for independent developers. to provide access directly to the curators. I don't know, just this is a really difficult situation because as at the same time, I get it. Just an independent developer just doesn't want to say, yeah, I'm not giving keys to anyone because you're sending a key request from like this random ass Gmail account or something.
Yeah.
Just I can definitely see indie developers not wanting to do that because you don't know that that small indie developer might be running a small budding Twitch channel where maybe their whole shtick is that they check out indie games all day. But at the same time, you also don't know that that person may not be a key seller. But at the same time, you also have some of these key sellers giving themselves away because a lot of these key resellers have been getting real greedy and saying, "Oh yeah, I need 3 to 5 keys because I'm going to be doing a giveaway on my Twitch stream," or I need 3 to 5 keys because I need all of my staff for my video game review site to review this game, and I need to get scores from all 5 of the staff members or something like that.
Hmm.
Just really, really obvious tells that they're overplaying their hand.
I guess developers have to be a little more careful, and until Steam does something better, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to do clever things like this to make sure your game doesn't wind up on some resellers. So that sucks.
It's been a very fascinating saga to follow.
Right.
Just um, especially since I had heard of stories of just key resellers basically bombarding independent developers constantly, badgering them for free keys and stuff like that, and just to see that there was sort of like a free key cartel going on of these resellers basically exploiting the Steam curator groups, and coincidentally, all of the admins in a lot of these groups share admin permissions throughout multiple of these groups. It was just kind of a fascinating saga to see unfold out.